Hey everyone, Norm here. Before we begin, I want to let you know that this week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible with support from Storyblocks. Every creator should have a Storyblocks membership. They make it easy for you to bring all your stories to life without having to worry about time, budget, or resources. Storyblocks has an ever-growing library of over 1 million high-quality, royalty-free stock assets, including 4K footage, music, images, Adobe Premiere, and After Effects templates, and more. You can even use Storyblocks if you're a member of a large creative team or marketing agency. Learn more and subscribe today at storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Once again, that's storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Let's get on with the show.
Hey, let's start the show.
For Thursday, April 8th, 2021. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Hello and welcome to a special, I don't know what you would call this, interim episode, special bonus. Yeah, it's part of the regular schedule, but not an episode we expected to have. I wasn't even supposed to come to work today. Clerks reference. But we're going to do it anyway because there's so much to discuss. It's Norm here, joined by Kishore Hari.
Hello.
And Jeremy Williams.
Hi, gentlemen.
We got a tight 30 minutes. It's all the time that I know I have with now not one, but two babies in this household. But I couldn't resist. I wanted to podcast. I was itching for it. So
it's almost time to stop calling baby one a baby.
They're old. I mean, you have two kids, Jeremy. When did you stop calling your oldest a baby?
You know, when they could talk.
Our first child is still working on that, so I think he still qualifies. Although, I've mostly staying offline. I'm taking the week off, and I've been reading but not engaging. And there are things that have come up that maybe you guys can relate to. One, I didn't realize how massive my oldest was until coming home with a 7-pound, 7.5-pound baby. And then the contrast of holding a 7.5-pound baby for an hour or two at a time to holding like a 36-pound toddler is dramatic. I have the tennis elbow band on because I'm already getting nerve pain from holding this child.
Wow.
Both of them. But also there's this weird thing, and maybe this is a common phenomenon for parents of two children. Two children, definitely that's when it feels real. But because the new baby, the baby girl, doesn't really have a personality yet, right? Like we haven't imprinted, like she's just like a thing that we feed and keep alive, and she sleeps most of the time. She just sits on a little tuffet, right? But because that baby exists alongside our toddler who went through that, and we went through that and forgot most of that just biologically for self-preservation, it almost feels like this strong sense of deja vu, like we're having the same child in two aspects of their life, like at the same time. Does that make sense at all?
I always thought the best thing about having two kids was you had better perspective on each of them. Like when you only have one kid, that's what a baby is. That's what a toddler is. That's what a first grader is. But when you have two, you realize just how different they can be at all those stages. So I guess it's exactly the opposite of what you're saying.
We're not there yet. That's what I'm saying. At some point, I'm sure. I mean, she's been alive for at this point almost a week, right? So she's such a blank slate that the motions that we're just going through to keep her alive are very much the same motions we went through with baby one. And so when I look at her, I almost just see, I'm projecting the memories I have of the first time around, because that was so traumatic from being not child free to having a child. That's a big life change, right? And that trauma is coming back. I mean, it's all delightful, it's all wonderful, but like it's like when I look at both of them, I'm like, it's this weird temporal. It's like an episode of Star Trek where I'm seeing like multiple phases of his life.
Funny.
at the same time, because she's nothing but this template of like, a newborn.
You know what's fun
Look-
is when you look at photos, baby photos of adults that that are friends of yours, you can see them. You can see their personality, their person in that baby shot. And so right now you have a baby that has all of those qualities, and one day you will look back on these photos and see this adult in this child. You just can't see the other way around. So you can't
No.
you can't
Project forward.
project. Yeah, project forwards, but
Right.
that it's all there.
Oh, I could see it with the 2-year-old now. I look back at the baby pictures, and there's a lot of like facial expressions, and that stuff kind of emerges in that first couple of weeks after the first month or so. And we're going through all that right now. There are things, it's both easier and harder, very much harder, because juggling 2 different schedules, they're overlapping. And obviously Danica's recovering from a C-section surgery, so it's like 6 weeks if she can't even lift, baby one, and then easier also.
No one tells you about the tennis elbow with 2 kids.
No, and but also easier in that like it's less of a shock that we know we're not going to get any sleep. Like we plan on not getting sleep, and so I'm working on 3 hours so far, and we're making it work.
You've got some great photos. People can see them on your Twitter.
Thank you. I brought a light. I brought a light into the
You brought a ring
room.
Light into the recovery room?
It was a soft diffused light. All the nurses said, "What is that? What is that? Like, what is this thing with batteries?" "Oh, it's a light." And when Danica was asleep and baby was also asleep, I just did a little set decorating and put a light in and took pictures. UCSF, highly recommended facility and staff there. They should go to
Everyone is healthy, happy, and doing well, though?
I mean, healthy and doing well. I guess we're happy.
You're going to get there.
We're going to get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm happy to check in with you guys, though. Hear your voices. I've been so disconnected from the world. But we did find time, I will say, even though we checked in the hospital on Thursday and Falcon the Winter Soldier, we had an iPad. We chose to wait till we got home to watch Falcon the Winter Soldier and catch up on all the media because we wanted to do it on the big TV and not just on the small screen. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to do a little bit of catch up, talk about Falcon Winter Soldier, talk about some new trailers that dropped in the MCU, and then also Star Trek. Paramount Plus had their first Contact Day, which they announced some big things related to all things Star Trek. Where do you guys want to start?
Let's start with Eagle and Summer Soldier, as my kid calls it now.
Eagle and what? Summer Soldier?
Summer Soldier.
Summer Soldier. Okay. Before I break out the spoiler light, this is episode 3. We're halfway through the season of this adventure romp world, very much like Avengers Age of Ultron. It's a globe-trotting adventure. Familiar faces have come back. Revelations. There's an antagonist that's returned. I think no big spoilers. Say Baron Zemo, now a real Baron, has become a big part of this show. What did you guys think of the episode?
I'm going to do my Zemo dance.
Like Kishore has this down for a 7-minute slot in today's episode, and I'm okay with like a 1-minute slot. Like this episode was, I don't know, maybe I just wasn't in the mood, but I just didn't care for this episode.
I agree with you, Jeremy.
I am with you as well.
Wow.
I'm with you as well. This was a big fat miss for me.
Boom.
There was a couple moments that I was like, oh, that's cool. But outside of that, this was like just inconsistent with the first 2 episodes.
I think spoiler light is on. We'll get into we're going to talk details. I think this episode suffered from the amount of world building they had to do, and the show being so sprawling and covering both the adventures of Falcon Winter Soldier, where Baron Zemo has been, where Sharon Carter has been, creating a whole new fictional location right out of the comics in Madripoor. Plus, you have what U.S. Agent / New Captain America is doing. It's tough, for them to make this feel grounded and real when this is all filmed in Atlanta and on studio lots and on sound stages. And the show, I think, this episode suffered from that. I mean, it felt like network television spy drama at some points. When Falcon got a phone call from his sister in an intense moment, like in this throwaway scene almost, didn't do it. I lost me right there.
Yeah,
I
there were issues with divine intervention with them getting out of trouble that I just couldn't keep suspending my disbelief. It just fell flat, and I didn't even know who that character was who saved them. That's clearly somebody I'm supposed to be familiar with. But if you're not paying attention to the Marvel films as closely as you guys are, I think a lot of people would like just some questions answered about what's going on here.
Well, let's answer those questions just for your benefit, so you can at least enjoy maybe the next couple episodes. You had two big recurring characters, returning characters from the films. One, as you alluded to, the one who rescued them, Sharon Carter. This is the niece of Peggy Carter, right? Steve's true love, who had maybe a thing with Steve Rogers in the Civil War and also in the Winter Soldier films. She
Hmm.
was the one working for Nick Fury. She's the one that helped steal the shield. So the idea is that after the events of Civil War, she violated, the law by stealing the shield and the Falcon costume, an armor back for them. These outlaws that were Steve Rogers and Falcon. And then we kind of never saw her again. She wasn't in Infinity War. She wasn't in Endgame. We don't even know if she was was dusted away and blipped away. So I think the idea is that she wasn't. And in these past 5 years, she's been on the run still, even though she, Captain America got a part in and Bucky got a part in. She's on the run, building now a criminal empire in this city of Madripoor. So that's kind of weird. Her pearl. I mean, there's definitely more to her character than meets the eye at this point. There's secrets, like the last shot of her in this episode is her getting in the car, and maybe she either works for this broker character or is the broker. But like her shoehorning that character, because I don't think they knew what to do with Sharon Carter. Right, Steve wasn't going to have a thing with her. Steve reunited with Peggy at the end of Endgame. So this is a way that for them to pull someone from the roster and give them an interesting role, give them a great fight scene. But I didn't
Someone who
like
doesn't
it.
cost too much, maybe.
Yeah, they
I
weren't going
don't
to
know
get
about
Black
that.
Widow. I mean, like it's like a familiar face, but like it was such a difference in her characterization. I didn't like it.
Yeah, I thought it was subpar. A good fight scene potentially like can resolve things. Like if she ends up being the power broker and is kind of playing like a double agent, like she's still good and has just been placed in this sort of den of villainy as sort of a plant. Like I can live with that, but there wasn't enough there. So I was disappointed by that. I was more disappointed by the Zemo storyline, though.
Oh,
A way too convenient
yeah,
bust him out of prison.
yeah,
Just don't start with him in prison. Then
yeah.
we like just save like 7 minutes of that show. Zemo himself was fine, but then like he took on like a magical quality in one of the fights where all of a sudden he like became like a superhero of some sorts. And so I found it all too unsatisfying, especially with how good of a villain he was in Civil War.
Yeah.
And so that whole element was disappointing. There could be again interesting stuff to come with him, but they don't have a lot of time.
Yeah, there are a lot of
And
rumors.
then there's one more disappointing thing
Uh,
I want to get to.
Go ahead.
I think the disappointing thing is it's sort of two sides of the same coin. So the story with Carly Morgenthau, we're supposed to basically, empathize with these flag smashers. They had to either cut or alter that story because there's clearly something with like vaccines and some disease they're trying to help people get. And it
Mm,
feels like the way the episode was cut, they're like too close to reality. We're going to cut around this. And so there's this whole character that passes away that she has like some interest in that just gets
right.
glossed over. I think that's a mess. The flip side of that is we get no development of U.S. Agent either of new Captain America. We get just a brief glimpse for him. He feels like a side character in this episode.
Yeah, and I actually like there's the scene with him in which he just this lack of presence, the contrast of his command with what we've seen of Steve Rogers, really just the way they film him, the way his dialogue is so clunky. It really, for the viewer, as much as they want us to feel like this is a guy who wants to be Captain America, he is not worthy of the mantle. And I think they've at least done that well. The whole scene where he holds the guy, he's like, "Don't you know who I am?" And his voice is shaking. Like that was a good portrayal of someone who just isn't fit for the shield. I completely agree with the Carly Morgenthau scene. Like her motivation, that the character dies, like her relative or something, that was supposed to be like the motivating factor for her, and it was completely just glossed over and came out of nowhere. It did feel like it was chopped up. Again, it feels like they're trying to do too much with this show.
I think it was
Um,
clear that the new Captain America wasn't fit for the Shield in episode 2 when he pulled out a gun.
it's been some debate online because Captain America he used guns in all through World War II. He pulled the machine gun in the first Avengers film when he was defending the helicarrier from being attacked. In the comics, he used. I mean, I think the Captain America not using a gun thing isn't like Batman in that that's a defining part of his character. It's just a decision from the Marvel Studios folks that okay, Captain America doesn't need to use a gun. He's a super soldier. But I think philosophically, the character, he fought in the war, right? He fought in World War II. He probably used a lot of guns in World War II. But it's a Disney show. You're starting to see some of the end game, like where the show is going to end up with this idea of 20 super soldier serums left, and so money's on Falcon probably getting one of those doses to become Captain America by the
My
end.
money's
maybe
on
he turns it
Zemo
down.
getting one too.
Yeah, right. And which would be a really interesting development for his character because his whole thing is his hatred of the idea of super soldiers. Maybe the U.S. agent character gets one as well as in an attempt for him to want to be Cap, but be truly undeserving, but super powered. So we'll see where the show ends up.
We should talk about the end reveal briefly.
Yes.
You talk about a show that already has too much going on, then we got a reveal at the end.
There's a teaser.
That is too much going on. Yeah, we see one of the Dora Milaje come hunting for Zemo, and that Bucky does something. I think it could be good development for Bucky if they basically say, like, you have to, this is your deal, like you're Wakandan like us, or whatever. But if they try to do anything more with that storyline than that, I think it's just going to muddy the waters for all the other things they've set up.
Yeah. All right. Spoiler going off. I think 3 more episodes left. Hopefully they'll land the show correctly. The other thing in the MCU, trailer for Loki coming out June 11th. This show looks amazing.
Oh,
From
good.
the
I'm
special
glad that-
effects.
Yeah.
This looks like cinematic quality in a way that the other. I mean, like Falcon Winter Soldier, there was money on the screen. This looks like there's like a lot of money on the screen.
Well, I wonder about that aspect of it because there is a lot of money in the first 10 minutes of Falcon Winter Soldier. There hasn't been as much money in every minute subsequent, past that. So I wonder if this trailer is like a best of in terms of like making it look expensive. But I'm with you. Like this trailer looks incredible to me.
Yeah.
And I was wondering if you guys would agree with that because where I've seen online, Slack and work and elsewhere, even my son, the reaction has been, that looks intriguing or that looks interesting. And to me, I'm like, the aesthetic is nailing it. Like it's a perfect 10. It almost looks like a Terry Gilliam style, sci-fi with a like a modern day budget computer graphic, aesthetic, and or at a BioShock or something. I mean, I love what they're doing.
They have more freedom, right? Like they can
with the
go.
sets. Yeah.
They can go into the CG world. They have this like time like keepers storyline where they can have a retro Americana aesthetic, but still have a ton of CG green screen style environments. I wonder, are they using ILM stagecraft for this for Mandalorian? Because that feels like that would fit the type of environments that they showed in this trailer, the cosmic stuff.
Yeah,
totally could be. Nothing against your son, but Jeremy, he's wrong. This is awesome. Like I think they cast Owen Wilson perfectly here. They're like, hey, can you be yourself in this universe? And so they didn't try to do too much with him. I predict a lot of Loki on Loki crime in this. This is all about Loki confronting different aspects of himself. And so we saw like Loki in all these different outfits. I think this is a lot of this Loki that escaped with the space stone is going to confront other Lokis. That's my sort of theory. And Tom Hiddleston is a great actor. I want to see him playing off of each other.
Who is that?
I
Oh,
just hope,
the Loki.
yeah, I want to see if there's enough ancillary characters to make that worthwhile. But that I feel like that's where it's going. That's what like the logo constantly shifting
Yeah, love
kind of
it.
tells me too.
Mm.
So I'm really excited about.
Are
that
we?
story.
Are you expecting to see scenes from previous Marvel films from other perspectives?
I don't think so. I think Kishore's right. They called the dialogue calls them a variant. So you're establishing that this is not the Loki who died at the beginning of Infinity War. It's the kind of Loki, the ones whose peak of mischief, the peak of being an antagonist, the one who's captured the end of Avengers. And so it's gonna be, I think, completely sidestep from the Marvel timeline. But addressing the idea of divergent timelines and variants of Loki, I think it's probably going to set up in the comics. There was a young Loki character. Loki gets reborn multiple times through Ragnarok, and I would not be surprised if they introduce a young Loki character so they can have a young Avengers. All of this stuff feels like it's building up toward a young Avengers, as we talked about before.
Yeah, just like WandaVision, I think set up the Doctor Strange movie. I feel like this show is going to set up the Ant-Man movie.
Huh.
Interesting. I didn't think about that. Okay. And then, so that's coming out June 11th. We're, of course, going to dive deep into that. But switching over gears to Star Trek, the announcements from First Contact Day. We got Lower Decks Season 2, which is my reminder for everyone. Lower Decks Season 1 is awesome, from my opinion. I think if you're a fan of Star Trek Next Generation, you should try Lower Decks. I know it's an animated show, but I think it captures a lot of the essence of Star Trek, and they can do a lot of far-fetched things in animation that they couldn't do in live action. But we also had the first preview look at Star Trek Picard coming next year, 2022. And Jeremy, you said this in Slack. I completely agree. It gave me chills.
Oh, good.
Watching this teaser. You want to start it?
Which is funny because I don't think any of us liked the first season.
I don't think any of us liked the direction this first season ended up. Compared to our hopes and dreams, we were so hyped for it on the podcast from the moment they announced it. I love the Data Picard final scene of the first season. I think that's probably what made it land okay for me. It still ended in a weird spot where Picard's this golem, and I think this season's gonna have him address that. But the elephant in the room is, well, the Queen card.
Right. Yeah. Well, it ends on that. The whole trailer, the whole teaser is Picard is a voiceover of him talking about, what you do, not in chaos, but what is the quote? Do you remember any of the script that he reads?
It's from it's Paradise Lost.
Is it from Paradise Lost?
I don't know. That's on the table. That's on the table.
The book is used as a prop that the camera passes over. And he talks about trying to avoid making regret and what you do when things go wrong, and then it ends on, and he talks about how time is the final frontier, and then it ends on the Queen card, and the whole card dissolves away, and he says something to the effect of like time gives you many opportunities but never second chances. And and then the Q is left on the table, and you hear Q laugh and says that the trial never ended,
which is the bookend. I mean, I'm of two minds of this. John Lancey has voiced Q there was a cameo in the Lower Deck show, so that in my mind felt like an appropriate use of Q because he's gotten old, also, right, John Lancey, and we also had one of the perfect series finales of all time in Star Trek Next Generation in All Good Things, with bookended, Encounter at Farpoint with the trial of humanity and Picard exhibiting some, next dimensional thinking in saving humanity and just giving you the inkling, like that gave you the sense that, the trial was over, and Picard, saved humanity by showing that that extra level of thinking allowed him to see the universe in a grander view, right? So for the trial to continue, I feel like they got to find a good reason for that. It also feels a little bit like the greatest hits. Now, I have no complaints with this. One of my favorite episodes of Star Trek is what they're referring to as Tapestry, which is literally the second chance episode where Q allows Picard to go back to his academy days and make a decision, change a decision, not get stabbed in the heart. And then he realizes that decision was, affected his career path. And by playing it safe, if he had played it safe, he would have never taken command of the Stargazer. He would have never become an officer. And you have this wonderful scene where in this alternate future where Riker and Troy basically tell him that Picard would never be fit for command. And I feel like this is taking that idea and now stretching it into a full season. Kind of greatest hits. Like, I mean, is that what you guys think?
I don't know. I don't think I'm as high up on this. I think the dissatisfaction with the last season is still in my mouth. Like I can still taste like all the potential that wasn't realized, and it makes me really cautious about this season. I will say the one thing that got me really excited beyond the trailer is Will Wheaton did a little thing with Patrick Stewart, and then John Delancey comes in, and John Delancey oozed Q, just like oozed him throughout every single of his pore, and in like the most like impish kind of maleficent kind of way that makes me excited to see that character. But I think we need a conclusion out of this. Like the trial goes on is a great saying from Q, but it needs to have finality because we're at the end times for Picard.
Yeah.
So it can't keep going. It has to have some conclusion. It has to have some moment. Patrick Stewart did say that Q enters at this moment of utter crisis where things have been shattered for him. And so Q enters at the lowest of low points for Picard, which is perfect. Like that's when Q always shows up, right? So
that's the word I was trying to think of. And the line from the voiceover is, what we do in a crisis often weighs on us less heavily than what we wish we had done.
So what's the crisis? Is it a crisis that we haven't seen yet, like they did with the first season of Picard? Or is it a crisis that of reunification or something that they're going to tap into in TNG? That's a question we don't know. I also hope that this isn't a way for them to reboot the character of Jean-Luc Picard. The whole second chance thing. If at the end, Picard is a golem and Patrick Stewart gracefully leaves the show, but Picard gets recast and gets a second chance at life with a younger Picard. That's what I really hope they don't do as a way to, have a season 3 or 4. I don't think it would be the same without Patrick Stewart being involved. And if he's not going to be involved after this, if 2 seasons is all we get, I think it's 2 seasons way more than any of us as fans expected to get.
I was disappointed with season 1, but I am going to give this show a second chance. Like, I feel like they have had the time to hear the feedback, to criticize it themselves, to do their postmortems, and to make a better show.
All right. Book that ticket, climb that mountain of content, and subscribe to Paramount Plus. There's also the animated Star Trek show that was going to be on Nickelodeon, but now is also going to be on Paramount Plus. And Kate Mulgrew's coming back as a Captain Janeway. It's been announced that she'll be a holographic character as an emergency training hologram, emergency command hologram, but basically a guiding voice for these kids who have found a derelict ship, a Federation ship also lost in the Delta Quadrant. Callback to the DS9 episode of Valiant, in which a crew of red shirts, a crew of cadets take command of a ship, and it doesn't go well for them. All right, I think that's basically all we have time for. I got a baby waking up. I saw a text message. So quick check-in.
You gave the baby a phone?
No, well, when I said
it is Norm's kid. Got to start him early.
Yeah.
Can you do some testing of this new phone? I need your review by the end of the week, baby.
Let me tell you, this is fault of my parents completely, but baby one at not 2.5 years old can navigate YouTube proficiently to a point where he can skip ads and dismiss notifications to continue watching content and watch full screen. It's scary. I never understood what digital native meant until I saw a 2-year-old proficiently navigate YouTube, not like search and type, but just through YouTube recommendations.
Yeah.
Find his way toward the content that he always wants to watch. It's crazy. Parenting. All right.
Seriously, congrats to you. Congrats to Danica. Congrats to baby 1 and 2 for having each other.
Oh, thank you guys so much. We'll be back hopefully next week with a full episode. We're not going to do any outros or stingers, but stick around after the break. I have a bonus VR minute interview with the company Plutosphere that I did a while back, and might as well throw it in the episode. Stick around for that. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, Kishore. We'll see you next time. Hey, before we move on to our next segment, I want to remind you that this week's episode of This Is Only a Test is made possible because of support from Storyblocks. We all know that video is the most effective way to capture someone's attention, but the storytellers of today are challenged with creating more video content at a higher quality than ever before. Trust us, we know this very much. Thankfully, Storyblocks makes it easy to keep up with the growing demands of modern video content so you can bring all your stories to life and stop sacrificing your vision due to time, budget, or resources. Every creator should try a Storyblocks membership. And with their affordable subscriptions, you can stay on budget while telling the best version of your story. Storyblocks has an ever-growing library of over 1 million high-quality stock assets, including 4K and HD footage, After Effects and Premiere Pro templates, music, images, sound effects, and more. Assets are royalty-free, and with their unlimited all-access plan, you get unlimited downloads of everything in the Storyblocks library. If you're a member of a large creative team, marketing agency, or media organization, Storyblocks has your back with comprehensive coverage for your entire company that enables you to distribute whenever, wherever. Learn more and subscribe today at storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Once again, that's storyblocks.com/onlyattest. Hey everyone, before we wrap this episode up, I have an extra interview for you. Think of it as a bonus VR minute. So back in February, a company called Plutosphere announced that they were rolling out their betas for their cloud-based VR service. That's right. This is VR experiences, Steam VR essentially, that not only doesn't run locally on a Quest or a Quest 2, it doesn't run on your computer streaming over to your headset like you would use with virtual desktop. Instead, it runs on cloud services that then get piped over your home internet and then over a Wi-Fi connection to your mobile headset. And I got a chance to try out this beta and as well as chat with the co-founders of Plutosphere, Forrest Gibson and Jared Cheshire. So what you'll see here is an interview that we conducted in Steam VR. If you're listening to the audio, we're going to jump right in, and the first person to chat is Forrest Gibson. Let's take a listen.
So on a high level, really what we're trying to do with Plutosphere is bring all the capabilities that exist in the PC VR ecosystem to a wide range of devices. And we're starting with the Quest because it's sort of one of the most widely adopted VR headsets, as well as being one that has sort of the most restrictions around it. So being able to kind of bring that full PC experience from anywhere to a Quest headset, we thought was a really good place to get started.
And so this is obviously I see a Steam environment. This is a remote PC. You guys are allowing users to connect remotely to data centers that you guys have partnered with, and then what gets installed on that side to allow the streaming to work, and how does that work in terms of users' games, users' accounts, and experience?
Yeah, so the ability that's allowing us to stream like we're doing now is powered by NVIDIA's Cloud XR SDK. And so that's what we're leveraging to be able to make this streaming connection possible. The way that we're looking at rolling this out is that this is a PC. And this is a PC as a service where you're going to get access to this PC. And this is a thing that you get to control and to install the games and applications that you want. And that's really kind of the way we're starting this off, which is creating something that is an open ecosystem. That's really the power of PC.
And the NVIDIA, their streaming tech does all the kind of back-end data management in terms of the bit rates and optimizing where the centers are and everything. So you guys don't have to build anything of that out, right?
One way to think about it is it's kind of like a virtual cable. It's a virtual cable that connects a computer to your headset. And everything that cable does is like the video compression, sending over the pose information, doing things that are reprojection, and then the computer and the environment, the user experience, that's Plutosphere. And so NVIDIA Cloud XR allows us to be able to produce this really awesome user experience that is the experience you can have on a PC on a Quest. So we kind of think about it as like a cable, like a virtual cable that allows us to connect to a computer that's, hopefully locally in your region.
Right. And we've seen a lot of those kind of remote PC services pop up over the years. Input has typically been, your keyboard and mouse input, a lot of standard I/O. VR I/O is a little different, not just the voice that you guys are working out, but also the post data. Can you give me a sense of how the data that you get out of the headset compares to standard PC input or gamepad input data, and how that affects streaming, or is that just not a big impact?
Yeah, so right now we're using Steam VR, and Steam VR has like the input bindings associated with the controller type, and those controller types are being communicated in over the wire and represented. So when you see your controller, that controller is the controller that's represented in Steam VR. So you can see it's very similar to the Link system. When you plug your headset in directly into a computer, it's very similar. So it's the same action input bindings that you might expect in Steam. And then because it's Steam and it's the PC, you have full control. You can change any of those bindings to be whatever you want. So really think of it as like it's a full PC and you can do whatever you'd like.
And in terms of the quality of experience, latency is obviously a big priority, but also image quality and bit rate. You mentioned Link as a point of comparison, and the user has a little bit of transparency in terms of how they can configure Link. How much configuration can the user do with this experience, and what's the best? Where do you see the roof of the experience, the ceiling for the quality?
Yeah, so I think that there's a lot of components on the technology side that allows this experience to be really good. And the one that's the most fragile mostly is the Wi-Fi connection. So if you have a Wi-Fi 6 connection and you're connected to a computer that's kind of local to you, something that's like in your region, you can have a really good experience. And the closer that computer can be, the better the latency can be. And the higher quality the connection, both latency and bandwidth, the better the visual quality can be. And so we're really excited as we're able to kind of show this experience that when the conditions are met, you're able to actually have a pretty awesome experience. There are many of the pieces that are a bit fragile, and that's exactly why we're rolling out to folks to test this stuff out.
Yeah, and obviously you guys are on side quests in your alpha now. I know Oculus just put out some of their terms that make this service specifically maybe with this service type of service in mind. What are you guys' thoughts on that, and how do you kind of work around that?
Yeah, so the way that we think about it is, Facebook is understandably trying to protect their ecosystem and making sure that there's a really quality experience that exists there. And so really what we're set out to do is, through starting with SideQuest, prove that this can be a quality experience. And it's going to take some time to get kind of work out the kinks and make it a really great experience for everybody. But we believe that once we do that, we can show that this can provide a really high quality experience for customers that meets Facebook's requirements around what they're trying to deliver with the Oculus brand.
And in terms of the app that you guys have made, it's facilitating all the the kind of the streaming stuff right now. Do you see a future in which some of that stuff is still rendered locally, in combining remotely rendered experiences with things that are rendered locally?
Yeah, so one of the things we're really excited about and how the avatars here are rendered, we're using the Pluto communication service, which runs as a discrete separate application. And so because the capabilities of the PC ecosystem, you can run multiple applications simultaneously, and you can run them as augmented reality apps on top of VR. And then those apps can be rendered locally, they can be rendered remotely, and as we've got the capabilities with Plutosphere, there's all kinds of things we can do in playing with where things are rendered, either fully remote or fully local. And because of these discrete kind of AR and VR applications, allows for all kinds of really cool things. And that's just kind of state of the art in the PC ecosystem.
So you're saying a developer or whatever your team is working on now can build software that, because of where the tech is, needs to be rendered all remotely. It wouldn't be too difficult to find the parts of it that could render locally, and it would still composite all pretty seamlessly.
Yeah, there's a huge opportunity for discrete applications rendered kind of wherever it is you'd like, based on what your use case is as a developer.
And there's some potentially low-hanging fruit that's sort of in line with a lot of other remote streaming services like desktop, where it might make more sense to render your hands locally because they're the closest things to you and they're going to be the most sensitivity to latency. Whereas right now, the hands you see are rendered remotely. So that's, there's a little bit of, you could definitely improve that and make that a better experience.
It's kind of like the 2D world where, you're when you have a remote desktop, like the best remote desktop experiences have a locally rendered cursor. There's a lot of stuff like that, design patterns to implement over time.
Yeah, and we see it in the Oculus UI itself. There's when you hit the menu, that's all rendered locally, and it's seamlessly compositing with the stuff in this, what we consider the far field in the background.
Totally. We're really excited about this spatial computer being a way that you'll be able to do things in augmented reality in the future as well. So it's definitely something that consider Pluto like an AR app that runs in VR, and then imagine the progression there. We're very excited about that persistent social connection, and then being able to have interactions as well is something I'm really excited about.